Ernie Pyle was a journalist who put his life in danger to describe the fears and daily struggles of soldiers fighting in World War II. He worked alongside the troops, experiencing what they did and placing himself in danger as they did. Pyle's columns capture the scene, and his reporting humanized the war for many of his readers. He covered America's involvement in the war from the front lines in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, and Japan, and gained a reputation as America's most widely read correspondent. At his peak, Pyle's columns appeared in 400 daily and 300 weekly newspapers. Pyle was born on August 3, 1900. He joined the United States Navy Reserve at age 17 and served 3 months active duty in World War I. Pyle became involved with journalism in college when he edited the student newspaper at Indiana University. Pyle dropped out of college before he graduated to take a job in Lockport, Indiana. He worked there for 3 months before moving to Washington, D.C., where he worked for the tabloid newspaper, the Washington Daily News, as a reporter. Pyle was named managing editor of the Washington Daily News in 1932 and served in the post for 3 years. 2 years later, he spent time on a leisurely trip to California to recuperate from a severe bout of the flu. Upon his return, the paper's journalists suggested that he write some columns about his trip to fill in for the vacationing syndicated columnist Haywood Broun. The series of 11 columns was a hit. In 1935, after reading some of his columns, the Scripps-Howard Alliance offered him the chance to write a national column, and he gave up his tasks as a managing editor. He wandered around the country in his car, writing columns about the unusual places and people he met in his travels. Never satisfied with his writing, Pyle suffered from bouts of deep depression. He continued writing the daily column until 1942, after the United States' entry into World War II. Pyle then became a war correspondent, often writing from the perspective of a soldier in the war, an approach that no others had taken before. His writing about the war gained him popularity, and also won him the Pulitzer Prize for journalism. His most famous and reprinted work is The Death of Captain Wascow, in which he writes about the deep emotions that were felt by soldiers at the loss of their beloved captain. Everyone read Pyle's columns to stay in touch with the war. Pyle then went to cover the war in the Pacific, where he predicted that he would probably not survive another year. On April 18, 1945, Pyle was traveling in a jeep with Lieutenant Colonel Joseph B. Coolidge and 3 members of the 77th Infantry Division on the island of Leshima in Japan. As the vehicle reached a road junction, Japanese troops began firing a machine gun located on a coral ridge about a third of a mile away. The men stopped their vehicle and jumped into a ditch. Pyle and Coolidge raised their heads to look around for the others. When they spotted them, Pyle smiled and asked Coolidge, "Are you alright?" Those were his last words, as the Japanese troops began firing again and Pyle was shot in the head and killed. He was buried with his helmet on, next to many other fallen soldiers, and a monument in his memory was built at the site. He was also a recipient of the Purple Heart Award. He was remembered as a friend by many soldiers and a great journalist by many Americans.